Welcome back to Jeff Koinange Live. We're on the bench talking about a very important subject, drug abuse. And I tell you folks, drug abuse is on the rise in this country. There's no doubt about it. But maybe there could be hope. Listen to these two gentlemen, because there is a bill, an amendment to a bill passed back in 1994, 26 years ago. And maybe this time around, there could be hope on the horizon. Here to talk about it, former NACADA chair, John Mutudo, is right next to me. And further out there is National Police Services spokesman, Charles Owinyo Wahungo. Good to see Good to see you both, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. Chairman, first you. It's taken 26 years to have this bill amended. Isn't that a shame? Because while you were chairman of NACADA, you tried very much. You tried and kept failing.
Yes, we did. But let me bring you back a bit. That it took 103 years to do the alcohol law. 103 years from 1907, August 17th. To the 13th of August 2010, when the former president, and I really salute him, Mheshimiwa Kibaki, did accept that law. We had tried, they had tried. The first time they came in what looked like parliament, the first time in Africa, or in this part of Africa, this part of the world, was on 17th of August at now Railway Club. It was the best building they had. It was called Railway School. And that's why the first Regicor sat. They had two bills, like we're having now, this amendment. The first bill was stoppage of slave trade. And the second one was a control of intoxicating drinks, which is alcoholic drinks. They passed the first one, which was stopping the slave trade. But the five gentlemen sitting there, the governor was also the speaker, could not agree on doing a law that would have controlled illicit brews, particularly in Murang'a area, which was reported to have a big problem by 1902. So from there, they had a series of trials coming up all the way up to the Changa Prohibition Act, all this piecemeal, until now we came to do the comprehensive law, which incidentally was signed by His Excellency the President on the 13th of August 2010. That is exactly 103 years later.
So you're saying this one?
This is a trial. This is a trial. If we have done 26 years, in alcohol we did 103 years. But Jeff, we must win this war. That's the beginning.
Good question. Okay, that's a good point. Let me ask the spokesman. Spokesman, are we winning the war? Because every day the statistics, and we're putting them up, we'll put up the statistics, they are scary. Are we winning the war against drugs?
First of all, it is important to understand history, the way he has put it. We've done so well so far. In 1994, I was already in service. And that is the time that we got this act that we are now repealing, Narcotics and Psychotropic Substance Control Act number 4 of 1994. Long before that, we used to charge people for being in possession of bang, or being in possession of heroin, or being in possession of cocaine, to eat 1 gram, 2 grams. And what used to happen is that, like Bangi, being in possession of bang, the punishment was 6 months. And the fine was just 1,000 shillings. So when the Narcotics and Psychotropic Substance Act of 94 came into being, it was quite punitive if you looked at it at that particular time. And especially those who were smoking bang suffered. I had my first casualty in 1994 because I remember I arrested a young man who was carrying, the shogis, the ones carrying, let's say, gunias at the railway go down in Kisumu. And we were searching a number of them before they came in to the railway go down, and we got one with some sokot of bangi, but he told me, please don't arrest me, the fine is too high, I'll die in jail. I remember that young man. To date is 26 years. We went to court for a few months, and then eventually one day I got information that he died, and we had to terminate the case. So it was quite punitive when it came, but with time a lot has changed. For example, the price of, because now when it came, it was $1 million bob, or 3 times the cost of the drug. But now the prices have even gone higher in the market, and a lot has changed. And we have also found some ambiguity in that law, which has enabled about 2,480 cases in the last 12 years. People who had been convicted have appealed, and they have gone scot-free because of that ambiguity. And therefore, there is need to repeal the law. Equally, we have now cases where civil servants in law are going to be subjected to punishments if you are found to be aiding or abetting narcotics, the trade in narcotics. Because even if you are you are a magistrate or a judge in the court of law and you are found to have abetted the crime in one way or another, or you are a public servant, a policeman like myself, then you go for 20 years or 20 million fine, or even both.
Chairman, okay, that's fine, but let's face it, Chairman, nobody gets convicted here. And I'm not being sourpuss, and I'm not being, I'm not being overcritical. But nobody, they're dragged to court. You've seen examples. You're taken to court, you walk away.
I think what happens, just look at the mechanism under which judges operate, and also the police. They arrest you today here with 10 grams of heroin, for instance, or cocaine. If you look at the Evidence Act per se, that exhibit must be preserved in that format so that the magistrate or the judge can make sound judgment on that particular one. Now let's look at a case where they get about 20 grams of changa, for instance, and they have poured already. So the argument will be for, against, and then there's doubt. Then there's corruption. Let's call it by its name. A dog by any other name is a dog. So the whole thing can be sorted out. Like if we begin now where we are now with this amendment, and then we have a timeline and say that, for instance, if you are arrested, say at JKLIVE, the nearest magistrate certifies the exhibit, and then you are charged and taken to prison within 48 hours. That can be done. That can be organized. That needs amendment on the floor, but we are beginning with something at least. But the important thing is that if you are caught with a quantity in this particular amendment, that's why we are celebrating people who love Kenya, including the police and everybody else, even the politicians and everybody, parents and everyone. I've not heard anybody speak against this particular amendment. Is that you become poor automatically. You become chokora just like any other. If you are caught with that huge quantity, you will not be celebrated like a billionaire, like they claim you will be. You own aircraft, you own anything, they will come for it. Then the other thing is that it does not interfere with existing, it does not fight with existing statutes. Like if you look at Schedule 4, the functions of county government, sub 13, I believe, you are supposed to, that matter to do with drugs and rehabilitation is supposed to be with the governors. That does not change. If you look at the Mutuzo laws, all the money for licenses is supposed to go towards treatment and rehabilitation. That does not change. So this amendment does not interfere with that or repeal those sections that are very, very gainful in implementation of the law.
But spokesman, let's face it, like the chairman just said, evidence disappears all the time. There are corrupt people up and down the chain. Will this bill help? That's what I'm just trying to find.
Yes, there are a lot of areas that, for example, you talk about traffickers. There's a difference between a trafficker and maybe a basic user. And that is why in this bill, convictions and punishments are based on grammage. For example, less than 1 gram. If you are caught with less than 1 gram, most likely you are a smoker. The minimum, you will be fined not less than 5 million, or you will be jailed for not less than 5 years. Now, between 1 gram and 100 grams, the punishment goes up. It goes to a fine of not less than 30 million and an imprisonment of not less than 30 years. Then it goes to over 100 grams, 101 grams and above, or 100 point something grams and above. Imprisonment is now life imprisonment. And The fine is now 50 million. So it is much more punitive, and it also takes care of the smokers versus the traffickers. But even the users, the smokers, they don't end there. There's a provision for rehabilitation.
Correct.
Which is very, very important. That you don't just assume that because this person is a smoker, is a drug addict, we just jail him and we just forget about it. No. There's a provision for ensuring that these individuals are rehabilitated.
Yeah.
And this is what is giving us one of the best provisions. In terms of evidence, the bill has come up with a provision that we need to be authorized to intercept communication between drug dealers. And that would be able even to help us to intercept communication even between them and those who are operating internationally.
Yeah.
And when we get that provision, this communication will not be used for any other purpose. It will only be used for the purpose of evidence in this particular matter. So nobody should worry that we are going to use that communication for any other purpose.
I was going to ask, how are you going to determine that? How will you know that someone is communicating?
For example, through intelligence, we would get to know that Jeff and Charles are dealing, and therefore we would be able to intercept your communication. You know, we just don't intercept at random.
Sure.
There must be an intelligence.
Yeah, but there must be also, these people are not stupid. These
fine
people, they communicate in flowery language or different language.
Fine, Jeff, but just get it from me. And that is why you would find there would be a lot of resistance when it comes to intercepting communication. But it will be done in a very professional way. And remember, where we are dealing with public servants for abetting or aiding, we also have a provision for dealing with public servants who want to fix people. Where I just want to fix you and then I plant drugs on you, that one will also be dealt with. So there's a check and balance in the manner in which this bill is going to help us. And remember that as we sit today also in terms of evidence, you may find that now the DPP will have authority to gather and collect evidence that is even at international level.
Sure.
Somebody who is in France or who is in Netherlands is able, the DPP is able to gather evidence from him and use that evidence against that person who is trading in Kenya.
Chairman, let me ask you this. Is this going to deter anybody? Let's face it, Kenya is still a very strategic, for lack of a better word, transit point, conduit point for people, passing through with drugs.
It will.
Will it deter people?
Yes, it will, because let's be practical. We take, say, cocaine, origin, say, Brazil. I'm just picking Brazil. And that was, initially it was about 10 kilos suspected. They have samples there because they got a Mr. X with that stuff. They do an analysis. These days, police are very well equipped to do certain things. They take the genome. So that same genome is traced somewhere in Kawangware. Meaning, that stuff which was found somewhere there in Brazil has found its way all the way to Kenya. And it could be part of that consignment. That's where now tracking becomes effective. And there's no way you can escape, because even if you do simple sampling, I'm not a police officer, but if you take a simple thing, you go to Luduri Avenue, today you find everybody is has that street thing all around. You go to Westlands and all these places. So if you get hold of that, and then you start the analysis and work backwards, sooner or later you are going to come to the master. And once you pin on the master, if it is in Kenya, jailed for life, and then all assets frozen. So if you take the case of the case which has been concluded, like the Akasha case, technically speaking, they are very poor people.
Today
they are
because of asset recovery, because of
everything. Technically speaking, they own nothing. Yeah. So if you want to own nothing, then deal with drugs.
And what happens to current drug dealers, if you will? What happens to them? Will the law catch up with them?
Yes, that is true. And that is why we are closing all avenues in areas that we want to ensure that we professionally gather evidence. For example, even this law provides for even cases of precursor chemicals that would be used in production of narcotics. We are not just leaving it to narcotics itself, including the precursor chemicals that would use. There's a provision for it and the punishment. We are even going to the extent of premises where these drugs are stored, manufactured, and so on and so forth.
And the landlord also.
And the landlords. And now, to be fair, what we've done is that we've said that every landlord would have to keep a register of confirmed address and details of the individuals that are renting their premises for purposes of trade. Because we want a situation where we are able to trace individuals who have been using particular premises. And if you don't keep that record and you cannot convince us, then you are subjected to, I think, a fine of about 2 million, or you are jailed for about 2 years. So we are trying to close up all the gaps, the ambiguities, issues of interception of communication, just to ensure that we can be able to close on each and every person. Remember, Jeff, the implication, apart from our zone maybe being used as transit zone, but even for the purpose of those who become addicts, you can see the socio-economic implication. Like us in terms of security. If you go to Mombasa, where we have had problems like in Likoni or in Kwajovu, and more so around
Old Town.
Around Old Town, and also around Nyali.
Yeah.
You find that the major problem is that the criminal gangs that we are getting in these places, most of them are using drugs. They're drug addicts. So the criminal activities are promoted as a result of consumption of drugs. There are some activities that you cannot do if you are normal.
Yeah.
For example, just using a sharp kapanga and cutting somebody's arm or beheading someone. These are things that are promoted. And also, it affects children. The children who are in school who are taking drugs, they will not perform in school. They will not read. Economic activities, it affects people. And more so, when it comes down to rehabilitation, it will affect us in terms of money that we are going to spend in managing these cases. So it is a long chain of negative implications when it comes to drug consumption.
Yeah, let's face it, Chairman. You know people who smoke bangi, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, and I'm sure you know people. Yeah. I know people who.
Yeah, but after this law is enacted.
After this law is enacted?
Now, and you sit there, I'm seeing you doing cocaine, heroin, and I don't take action, you know, I can also go in for 2 years or 2 million shillings. So if you are going to sit there and enjoy the show, or you have your boyfriend, your girlfriend, you take them as captive, which is very common in Kenya, and you keep dragging them and you're not taking that drug, then you'll be in for it to yourself.
So it is a law on disclosure.
Yeah.
You have to disclose if you have knowledge.
So if I know somebody who's smoking bangi,
yes. And we have it, and we have close information, and we can confirm that you know.
And I didn't report.
Yes. Or you come across this building and you know the activities going on here, and it is drugs, and you don't disclose.
Yes.
You come after me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, but look. We'll leave that right there for now. Everyone admits Kenya is a soft target. Chairman, you know this.
Yes, I do.
Okay, you were saying earlier on we could have gone the Philippines, or we could have gone, we are a soft target.
Yeah.
Why?
Because ni nchi ya kitu kidogo na kitu kikubwa. That's a fact. And then the other thing is that Kenya is, among the African countries, we are in a very strategic place. Our location, where we are. Everybody stops over here, from South Africa all the way. We are in a very advantageous place. When I was a chair at Nakada, I followed these tracks far and wide. Maybe I covered more than maybe any other chair ever. I must have covered over 50 countries that time. Most of it on my expense. To understand what goes on. And Kenya, we are civilized people. We trust people. People who do business. So if you are packaging, like, say, cut flowers, for instance, we are expecting you to have decorum, such that if you have declared roses, then they are supposed to be roses. But you will find that somebody, a crook somewhere, We'll find a way. And you see, if you have to check every bunch of roses or every box of roses traveling to other places, it's not that easy. Then there's the issue of affordability. We went to do shopping for these, you call them canines.
Yes.
Canines, which are very superior canines.
That
And
detect drugs. That
drugs,
yes.
A good canine, maybe he can correct me, but a good canine would be in a region of 1.2 million shillings.
To buy and maintain and
Not to buy.
Maintain.
To buy, just to buy. To maintain is even more expensive. And then you look at the police budget, then look at NACADA budget, for instance. Let me not talk about that, because I don't want the chair NACADA to have sleepless night. and those people working there.
Yeah.
But because it is in public domain, they are on 300 million shillings. So the whole organization is 300 million shillings. So if 3 K9s take about 4 million shillings, then maintenance. What we are saying is that we are lacking the tools that everybody else has. If you look like what they have in Bangkok, I stayed in Bangkok for 2 weeks. I stayed in China for about 2 or 3 weeks trying to see what tools they use. I did the Mexico border. I did Guatemala. I know how they do it there. I did Afghanistan. I know how they do it. But the police here, he may be at a disadvantage compared to me, because me have to say it the way it is, because they sacked me from Parliament because I spoke the truth. That they don't have those tools that they require like yesterday, so that they can be able to intercept all these substances using the most sophisticated systems. Like today, to go and sniff, what they're using are things like insects. They look like, what do you call this, big fry?
Like a beetle. Like a beetle.
Like a beetle. The sniffers are beetle type. So if they are suspected,
they detect the drugs.
Yeah, yes, they do. So they are able to come and take photographs, videos, and then check in those places. But you see, they are able to go places even which are Mbwakari area, and go and cover and do very well, so that by the time they raid, they are 100% sure they're going to happen.
But let's face it, Chairman. Hold on. One quick, because you mentioned Afghanistan, you mentioned Mexico border, you mentioned Guatemala. Drugs still leave those countries in droves. They still leave. They still, are able to transport the drugs from those countries. What are you talking about?
Some of it can be controlled. Like, for instance, let's look at the Afghanistan, the mountains there. You know how they were doing it. I don't know whether they have revised it. I've not followed. Lately, I've been doing with the treatment and rehabilitation. Have not followed the enforcement side. You can correct me. But the latest, when I was there, these guys drag camels at a particular point in the bush. Those are very rugged places. You know, Afghanistan hills, the side, yeah. So the camel is dragged at a particular point at a particular time. So eventually, it's driven deep into those mountains, and then given a consignment and left to roost. They come in about 1,000, moving wild. They are high, yeah, you know. So even the police, do you shoot the camels, or what do you do with camels, and where do you intercept them? Then they come and drop at a particular tree. In that tree, there will be somebody with a motorbike. You don't see nobody. So they pick the consignment and then go to another tree. There's nobody. They drop the consignment there. So even if you go to the 40th, 50th person there, it is very hard now to try to trace where this thing came from. Eventually it lands up in the Indian Ocean by small boat, big boats, and then it's in Africa. Here in Africa, we can talk about Kenya. How can we do it in Kenya? Drugs is not something that you can go to a Kunma market and just buy. You can just not go to the bank and get an overdraft and then go to buy drugs. So people who deal with the drugs can be easily cornered. And now with this law, this amendment, they'll be cornered. There's no way. If you are going to withdraw 500 million shillings, which is the standard withdrawal for those guys, yeah, that's $500 million. Then at least you'll have somebody to help you transport that 500 kilogram worth of banknotes. You'll be caught. And if you are caught, then that's the end of you. And you are out of the bracket now. Yeah?
I think, first of all, I have a very positive description of our country, Kenya. One reason why people would want to use a country as a transit zone is the integrity of that country. For a very long time, Kenya has been placed amongst most superior nations in terms of integrity, and therefore anything that was coming from Kenya maybe was good, and therefore people would not actually check so much. It's like, for example, if we are getting today a consignment from UK, directly from the port of UK or from New York, compared to when I'm getting a consignment from India or Pakistan or Nigeria, the way at which I'll check the sensitivity, the keenness I'll use for the consignment from Pakistan or India is not similar to what I'll use for UK. So Kenya had been in that point where we are highly respected, and we were considered a country of very high integrity. Now through that, now traffickers use that intelligence. And if you look at it, if you look at the history of trafficking in our country, it has been mostly foreigners who have used our borders and our transit points and the goodwill of the country. And also, we are so accommodative. For example, you find so many foreigners in this country who do not even have work permits staying here. And those are some of the things that we need to close at. I've had the privilege to go to the Mexico US border, a place called Nangole in Arizona. And we have also seen that the drug barons or the drug traffickers try to use all means to conceal, including going to the wheels of big lorries and very secretive points where they stuff drugs, and it takes a bit of time for that to be discovered. But they have also trained their dogs in a very good way that many a times they will be able to detect that there's something, and they would struggle by all means to get. So traffickers try to use all means possible because you see it is outlawed, and therefore it revolves over a lot of money.
So it's just like the movies we watch.
Yes,
it's like the movies.
Yes, and for your information, we've done so well as a country in terms of interception. You are aware that in 2004, we managed to get a haulage ton of cocaine. In 2018, we managed to get 1.5 ton single haul of heroin. And you also remember that in 2014, we detonated a yacht which had called Baby Iris. So we've done well. If you go to Jomo Kenyatta, you will find our team there, the anti-narcotics team, getting a lot of drugs that have been concealed in people's stomachs. You are given good ugali and matumbo, and you start releasing them. So
many of them are mules.
Yes, so I can say as a country, and as law enforcers, and now Kenya, one good thing, we don't just work as individual agencies, we work as multi-agencies. You find the police, you find immigration, you find KRA, and the intelligence service working as a team, as a multi-agency to ensure that we seal most of these loopholes.
But tell me something, what happened, like the 6 tons of cocaine or 1.5 tons of heroin, what happens to that? What happens to it? Did it disappear? Did it?
No. Most, like for example, the 204 case, yes. You remember that it was prosecuted to the end. There are people who were convicted, and it was destroyed. It was fully...
that's the biggest fear about some people. They think it's never destroyed. It makes its way back into the market.
No, it's a problem with Kenyans. Kenyans tend to enjoy rumors more than the truth. When today you come up with a crazy rumor, it will spread very fast. But from where we sit, and it was done during the day, they were destroyed during the day, openly, and they were burned. So I think it is important to believe that they were destroyed. But a number of people would not, because they belong to those people the team of people who doubt and would always not want to believe that something is happening.
Okay, gentlemen, I want to take a quick break. When I come back, Chairman, this question, running for office, if one is convicted, will they be able to run?
How?
What do you mean how? They still do.
The provision now,
yes,
which has been put in this bill that we are praying will pass in a short while, is that if you've been convicted, then what happens is that you are banned from appointment or running for public office.
For life?
No, for 30 years.
Oh, well.
Yes.
You can't even run a bank account.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Okay, and I want to know, how far is this bill? How far is it? Let's come back. Tell me after the break, how far is it, and can it be passed before the Christmas break? It's up to them, I guess, huh?
We would like it passed tomorrow. Tomorrow Thursday.
Let's take a break. And of course, our children, guys. What are we telling our children? Is there hope for our kids? Young kids are smoking bangi right now, you know, in their teens or younger. Let's talk about that as well.
Why not come back? Yes.
Keep tweeting. Oh, very important conversation we're having here. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag is JKLIVE. JKLIVE takes a break, and we'll read your tweets in a little short while. We'll be back in a moment.